Hello, I'm Lorraine Sish here, and I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. I'm not a cook, well, I do like to cook, but I am whipping up some cards for you today. Cards that are easy, cards that you can make in a very short amount of time if you're short on time or you just are want a calm, simple project to do. This is the place for you. So I'm glad you're here to help me whip it up today, and I hope that you find some inspiration. Let me switch the camera around and we will get started. Today and all this week, I am sharing some card ideas using the Pretty Florals stamp set and dies, which is part of a suite in the Stampin' Up! Catalog. And I am also using the Sweet Blooms. Well, not today, but it pairs with, if this is like one of those mega sweets, it pairs with Pretty Florals, and the Sweet Blooms are all part of one giant suite of coordinating products. So go to the website, stampinup.com, and check out all the possibilities for these products. In fact, you can also see them in the Stampin' Up! Catalog. If you need a catalog, reach out to me and I'd be happy to send you one. I'm also using, because if you notice, these don't have any sentiments on it, and this is the stamp set that I'm using. These are beautiful stamps for sentiments, but they're a little too big than what I want for today. So I'm going to go to this stamp set, which is all sentiments. This is one that you might want to just keep as a staple in your stash. It is the right words, and it has a lot of different kinds of sentiments and different shapes. Some are single lines, some are multiple lines. Some can be used inside the card, which is something that we've been looking for a while in the Stampin' Up! Catalog. So there you go. You have that. All right. So let me show you the materials that you need, and we'll get started. We're going to start with a card base, 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. Okay, our standard card base for an A2 card. Make sure to use your bone folder to make a nice sharp crease on the bottom there. Then we're going to need a piece. This is Secret C. These two are in colors for 2025 through 2027. Stampin' Up! Has 5 specialty colors that they release every other year, and they stay around for 2 years. So this is Secret C, 3/8 by 3 3/8 by 3/8, and then a piece of white, 3 by 3, and then we'll need 4 pieces of white. These you can just get from your scraps. 4 of them at 1.5 inch square. This is all inches, and if you're want to convert to metric, then hopefully you can figure that out, or it's come close anyway. Okay, this doesn't have to be, so precise. Just a fun card to put together. All right. So actually, you don't need both of these. I kind of showed this because what you can do is you can start with a 3 by 3 and then cut it in half this way and half this way again to get your 4 squares that are 1.5 inches square. So let's just pretend I already did that. I'm going to show you a way that you can just start with this without cutting it first. Okay, so basically, this is going to be a real clean, simple card. You notice I have a piece of DSP over here. That's going to be optional, and even the size is optional. We do want it at 5 1/4 tall, and I'm going to show you options of what it might look like if it is 4 inches wide or something more narrow. Okay, so it depends on how simple or stepped up you want your card to be. All right, so these 4 are going to be arranged eventually on my Secret C like this. And what we're going to stamp on there is one of these squares is going to have the sentiment on it. Ta-da! I happen to put it in the right spot. How about that? Okay, the other 3 are going to have the flowers from the Pretty Florals. And I already done a couple of them. I'm just going to show you that it doesn't have to be precise. Okay, this is what I'm going to do in front of you. this one, I just randomly stamped some of these flowers right on there. So we're going to come in at different angles. We want each square to be a little different, and they are going to get arranged on the Secret C square like little tiles. Okay, so don't those colors look pretty? I have Pretty in Pink for my background for that flower. Notice this is a two-step stamping. There's the background and then there is the detail. So you want to make sure that those are two different tones so that the detail shows up. So I'm doing the background in Pretty in Pink, and I'm doing the detail in Strawberry Slush, which is another in color that Stampin' Up! Has going for 2025 to 2027. And then for my for the stem, I'm going to be using on all my examples today, I'm using different greens just so you have an idea. For this one, I'm using Shaded Spruce because I thought the darker, richer colors worked with the Secret C. And the Secret C is a great contrasting blue to the cloud cover, which is this one here. So I'm going to open up the Shaded Spruce, and I'm going to try to make this a little bit different. Maybe we can go more straight up this time and get that, just for it to be in a different space, a different angle. All right, I think that's going to be just fine. And actually, one thing that I might do, make it a little bit different also, is maybe just bring a little bit of leaf on the side here, like there's another flower popping over there, just to make it look kind of random. Because making something random means you don't have to spend much time on it. You spend a lot of time worrying if something's going to be just right. Is it centered or not? Okay, so this is going to be stamped straight, full strength. Okie dokie. And then I might put a little bit on the corner down here as well, just like, again, it's kind of popping over there. It's going to look like it's been a full piece that's been cut up. And guess what? We're going to do that in a little bit too. We're going to show you that way. Okay, so our details coming in with the Strawberry Slush. Don't have to be too perfect about it. Just stamp some of those on there and look pretty, right? So we're going to stick that right there. Maybe if you don't like the layout, you can move these around a little bit. Kind of fine the way it is. Let me just switch this around. Maybe this might be a little bit better. I'm not real sure. Or we can move it this way. Maybe that's good. Yeah, okay, because these are sort of opposite, and then this one's more in the middle. Okay, I'm not going to worry too much about it because I think it's fine no matter what, either way. Let me do a quick cleaning of my stamps on my chamois. Now the photopolymer will stain, but doesn't. But they do clean off that color that is stained on there, especially the pinks and the reds. Will not come off on your next project as long as you're cleaning them off afterwards. That just shows me that they're well loved and used. Okay, so we're just going to glue these down so that there is similar border all the way around, like I said, like tile. And that's going to be kind of like a 1/8 border. I like to make sure I have a pretty good spacing there before this glue dries. While it's still wet, I can move it around if needed. Put this here. And this here. And then my sentiment down there. If you want, you could always pop one of these up, like the sentiment, right up on that one particular tile. But I'm going to actually pop up this whole thing. I'm going to put dimensionals on the back. And I like it well supported, so I'm going to put a couple more closer to the middle, but supporting those edges there a bit. Okay, now we're just going to put that on our card base. And like I said, that could just be a plain, simple little card, right? Looks lovely the way it is. Now, this is where that piece of designer series paper is coming in. If you like, you could use designer paper that coordinates with this suite, the Florals in Bloom, and you have a lot of different floral options that coordinate with the stamp set, but you also have some patterns that could be good for background. So I chose the one that was a secret C, so it would be rather subtle underneath. So here's your one option. We can keep that just like that. Beautiful, clean, simple look. Or you can take a piece of 4 by 5 1/4 designer paper and put that on like that as well to come, it might be a little subtle on the camera, but that's kind of what you want because you want this to pop. Now, another thing that you might do, if that's a little, it looks nice to me, it's fine, but it might be just a little too much. I might like a little bit more of the clean, simple look, but maybe not the whole way. So one other option is to put it halfway across your page. So I'm going to cut that to, I'm just going to eyeball it to about here, which is a little bit more than half, I think. And let's see what that looks like. That might be about 2.5 if that's what I came up with last time. Yep, about 2.5. So when I was playing around, that was the measurement that I was thinking might work when I showed you. And sure enough, kind of like we have some of these measurements kind of intuitive in our head. So I'm going to put it like this. I'm going to put the DSP on there just to have a little bit of something in the back if that other look is a little too plain and clean for you. But to be honest, sometimes we try to add too much. So be okay with leaving it kind of clean and simple. Okay, then I'll put this on the back. Take the dimensional backings off. And put this back on here. And I like to have it, you can have it right in the middle if you like, more up, more down. I like to have it, I gravitate toward the right and the bottom a little bit. And I'm going to let you know that this was inspired by a card that I did on a former YouTube video. And it was actually casing a card that was in the Stampin' Up! Annual catalog. So I will put the link in the description below so that you can go back and look at that card as well. It is a little bit more complicated, so that's why I'm not doing it on Whip It Up Wednesday. But this one real quick, easy, and you could see how that pattern, that pinstripe pattern, adds just a little something over here, but yet I still have that clean, simple look there. I just really love that, and I love the colors with the cloud cover and the secret C over there. Okay, did I call it secret C? I meant cloud cover. All right, so there's one option. Now here's another way we can do this. And like I said, instead of starting with 4 squares and just randomly stamping on them, you can just start with your 3 by 3, and we're going to just stamp that up real quick. And then we're going to cut it. So it's going to look more of a panoramic rather than random tiles. Put that aside for a moment. I'm going to come in with my sentiment, You're So Kind. And I'm going to, this time, stamp it on the top right. And I'll tell you why, because if this is going to be more of a scene, then the flowers are going to be growing from the middle up. So I didn't want them to be like the stems, the bottom of the stem starting in the middle here, hanging out in nowhere land, okay? So I'm doing that first, and now I'll stamp my flowers around that very quickly. I'm using Granny Apple Green this time because we're going to have a different card base. We're going to use Peach Pie And now my Granny Apple Green, I mentioned this in one of my other, in my live videos. It looks like there might be some darker ink on here. I'm not sure what happened there, but I don't know. It almost looks like some garden green got stuck on there, but it's giving it kind of a variegated look. So I'm not going to worry about it too much right now. If eventually it doesn't come off, I can scrape some of the ink off there and add more Granny Apple and see how that works. And worst comes to worst, I'll just buy myself a new Granny Apple Green. But I kind of like the different looks there. Now, like I said, I'm kind of making this a scene where I'm going to try to make different heights to the flowers, kind of like a little garden. And this one's going to come in from the side because, like I said, I didn't want the bottoms of the stems hanging out nowhere. And it's okay for it to be off the page a little bit. Right now, on the top here, I'm going to be adding my flowers. So this is, like I said, the two-step stamping techniques. I'm going to be doing Petunia Pop. And, oh, here we go. Nope, wrong flower. All right, here we are. We have two different pieces to these flowers. I'm using this one here that coordinates with this background. Now, when you open up the case, these are in different positions, just so you know, be careful. This is the background I have, and the detail is this one. These two are the ones that match up. You'll see they're more oval, and they'll fit in there better. These are a little bit more tall, all right? So I'm going to be using that one first, and I'm going to be stamping off a little bit of ink off my paper first, and then I'm going to just line it up with the, is it the sepal? I think that's the name of it, the greenery that holds the bud. And it's okay that some of these overlap because that's what happens in a real garden, right? Okay, so that's stamped nice and lightly. So now we're going to come in and use the detail. Full strength this time so we get the variation in the shading. And where do you see this? It's really a wow. Isn't it beautiful? I just love two-step stamping. You don't have to do the work. Bam, bam, bam. All done. Isn't it gorgeous? Right, then, now, oh, I got a little bit over there. Oh, well. Oh, wow, it's handmade. Okay, so now we're going to cut that in half. You could leave it just plain, like this one here. Okay, I did that. Just left it because it was so pretty. I said, well, let's do a different variation and cut it into those tiles. So 1.5. One thing that's nice about the Stampin' Up cutter is you can measure 1.5 on the right side, up to 1.5 on the right side as well. So 1.5 and 1.5 here. I'm just cutting that right in half. And then we'll cut these in half. And then we're going to have that tile look. On the Granny Apple Green. Just like that. So we'll glue that down real quick. Nice when everything is squares also, because then you don't have to worry about too many measurements. So your white is starting at 3 inches, and the green is 3 3/8 by 3 3/8. Now, the way you come up with that, if you wanted to try a different measurement for the white, if you want 3/8, if you want a 1/8 inch square border all the way around, then that's what you're going to. Oh, that was up there, wasn't it? Oh well. Sorry about that. Put it in the wrong spot. Still looks pretty though. Just not that cohesive picture that I was hoping for. Okay. So if you want an 1/8 here, an 1/8 in the middle, and an 1/8 there, you're just going to add 3/8 to whatever your total of white squares are. Okay. So the white altogether was 3 inches square. Then I added 3/8 to make the 1/8 on this side, the 1/8 on that side, and the 1/8 on that side. Same thing here. You have an 1/8 below. You have this one is an 1/8 and that one's an 1/8. Okay, so now you can put that right on your card base, and that looks lovely just as it is. If you wanted to add something here, here's where you can step it up just a little bit, but this takes just a little bit of advanced planning. When I was die cutting some of these pieces out that go along with the stamp set, I started thinking, I said, oh, that could be used as a stencil. So I started playing just with the cardstock. Now that it gets a little flimsy, but I was just playing around with that a little bit, and I liked the look of it. It was really kind of cool. So I said to myself, let's do those dies with acetate. I got a little fuzz on here. Oh boy. Okay, so I took some clear acetate. Let me get the glare on there so you could see the acetate that came in my stamp case with my photopolymer stamps. And I ran my dies. I ran this through with my die cuts. Now, this is thicker than cardstock, a little harder to cut, so I had to go back and forth 4 or 5 times. And then sometimes I had to just come in with my snips to catch some of the parts that didn't cut all the way through. But it really makes kind of a fun way to make a background. Once you have this, you can do it with any color. Let me show you what I did with this one here. I made some stencil. I used my blending brush and we made a stencil look on the background using this same concept of the 4 tiles over here. So I'm going to do that real quick with you today. And so this is if you had a little bit more time, you can do this. So I'm taking my acetate. First, I'm going to put just a little bit of, blend a little bit of ink on my card front. You want to dab off just a little bit. You don't want too much ink on your brush when you start to brush. This is going to be a little hard to see on the camera, but it will be it just adds a little bit of texture. So you can even just leave it like this if you wanted. Because you do see a little bit of shading. So now what I'm going to do, again, this is random. Random is good because you don't have to think too hard on it. I'm going to be using, I've got some extra pieces here. Let me grab that off. Tone on, I'm using tone on tone here. Let me get my snips. There's a little piece of acetate hanging. Okay, there you go. And I found it's best to, if you do this to, maybe if I put it on here, you could see better. All right, there you go. It's best to do this in the middle because you don't want this to, when you're blending, you don't want to catch the edge of this because then you're going to see the line here. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. This is where I was just playing around and practicing with the Fresh Freesia with Highland Heather ink. And I wasn't thinking, I went off the line there. Well, this is just practice anyway. I went off the edge of the acetate or the cardstock, whatever I was using at the time, and I got lines like that. So I didn't want that. So I said, okay, I'm going to make sure I put those images, those cuts rather, in the middle of the paper so I can avoid the edges. I've got acetate on my thing now. Okay, there we go. All right. So because some of these places in between the leaves are thin and pointy, you don't want to go against them and pull them up and bend them. So I'm going to kind of go in the direction that they fall. And I'm not going to worry too much about how much coverage I get. I'm just going to brush it on there real quick. I'm going to keep moving this around. Some will be lighter than others, and some will be off the paper a little bit. Now I'm remembering that this is going to be sort of there, so I don't have to do too much right in the middle. So I'm going to catch more around the edges here. I'm going to overlap some of these. Like I said, make some lighter. I'm not going to worry about too much coverage. It's nice having the two different styles of leaves, little sprigs here. Okay, look at that nice kind of faded, worn look here. So really nice. One thing I do recommend is getting some way up in the corners. Go to the edge of the page so it just looks a little bit more natural. Just move it around a little bit until you get the coverage you want. But it's okay if they're overlapping because it kind of looks like the fall leaves and they fall on top of each other. Okay, I'll put this one just a little bit darker here. All right, maybe just a touch over here. Okay, so then put that on there with my dimensionals, and I think that's a beautiful card. And look how quick that was. Just wipe this off with some water, run it under the sink, or I take just a wet paper towel and I make sure I just go over it and get the peach ink off of there for the next time I want to use a different color. When I was playing around, I was practicing on this one little strip, and I decided, all right, on this card, I just use the strip instead of doing this across the whole page. So those are different ideas. Because I didn't cut this, my green piece is 3 1/4 instead of 3 3/8 like this one is here. Okay, so that's the difference there. Here is the lavender one on Fresh Freesia. And then here's the first one we did. So different designs, different colors, and I hope you like them. And I hope you can also make a nice, quick, and easy card. So thank you so much for joining me today for Whip It Up Wednesday, and I'll see you next time. Bye now.